Sorry. I'm going to start recording this. So what we find is that a lot of students have difficulty with the aspect of patience. All right. So what I started to do was I started to teach this from a cultural perspective, meaning that it's not so much that you're focusing on the goal, but it's a way of life and how you live your life. It's a culture that you indoctrinate yourself into, so you don't get caught up in being outcome dependent, meaning that you must always see results in order for you to be happy. And that's not the best way to do it because we talk about the spirit, and the spirit within you is consciousness and is aware of what's happening. You can't trick the spirit. So if you are trying to manifest a goal and you're outcome dependent, the spirit will know that. And essentially what outcome dependent means, it's doubt. And when you're expressing doubt, which is coming from the left hemisphere of the brain, that means that you're sabotaging the manifestation of the goal. Because doubt is a belief system which implies that you're powerless. Because the meta frame or the meta belief is that you don't have these powers and that you can't manifest these things. This is why you become outcome dependent, because you must see results or else you don't believe it's real. And that's a very dangerous thing because that's exactly how you prevent the goal from coming to fruition. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So with this new program, the reality engineering, you're not focusing on the goal. You're focusing on the benefits that come with the goal. So when you're doing that, this is what's really happening. You're piecing together a world that is different from the reality that you're living right now. So if you are focusing on gaining, say for example, $500,000, right? You're not focusing on the money itself, but you're focusing on the mindset of what is it like to have $500,000? How would you act and interact with friends and family members if you had $500,000? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you start to take on a way and attitude about yourself, which is kind of like a person who has abundance. But you're still not focusing on the money itself. You're more so focused on how you're living your life with the idea of, I have $500,000. Okay? And there's a big stark difference between that and the Experience a New Reality program, where you're actually focusing on the 500,000. Both work, but what's really great about both approaches, it depends on the type of person you are. If you are a person, and Michael Talbot did this exercise where he traveled the world. I told you guys about this last week in his book, The Holographic Universe. And he found that those individuals who were able to manifest things in their life had a very strong belief system. Those who did not manifest things in their life had a very weak belief system. And we call that in this program a frame of mind. A frame is how a frame is your perspective on life, how you're seeing the world. So if you're a person with a very strong belief system, then the Experience a New Reality program is for you. If you're a person who doesn't have a strong belief system, then you'll need something like reality engineering, where you're not so much focusing and thinking about the goals so much, because your doubts will creep in.
Yeah.
So this program is to help those people who may not have what we call as reference experience. And if you remember from last week, reference experience is those things that the spirit can look back on and says, hey, I've done this before, so I believe this can happen, this can manifest. So let's say, for example, if you wishing you had extra money and you found $500, and then you started to focus on getting 500,000, the spirit through reference experience says, oh, we found $500 because we were hoping and praying for it, so we should be able to manifest $500,000. But if you've never done this type of exercise and manifested $500, you have no frame of reference. You have no reference experience. So therefore, your spirit doesn't believe that you can achieve that. So your spirit will sabotage it. Now, I talked about that. We're going to just cover very briefly here languages which command the spirit to manifest things or to not manifest things, because language is part of a belief system. And that's very important, because the way you talk and communicate actually commands the spirit to do certain things, whether you realize it or not. which is why it's important that, one of the things I was diving into looking at, it was creating a different language, because the language we use today is very corrupt and it's bad, and it keeps us from using our power, of course, but it's designed to do that. You know what I mean? It's designed to make us powerless. So we just have to keep that in mind, which is why we have to adapt a new way of talking and speaking. And this is the whole idea behind NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, is that they've created this whole science behind communication, how you communicate what they call as the subconscious mind, or which we call as the spirit. Now, I took Mike, you heard Mike talk, I think it was a week or two ago. I took Mike out last week, and we were doing some exercises to manifest a certain reality, right? And we talked about things like going dark and not focusing on anything that doesn't align with the reality that you want. Part of Mike's thing is he wants certain things in his life. So we went out and I introduced him to somebody, and she, for whatever reason, went, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Why is this coming up? That's weird. She, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was due to miscommunication, or she went to her boyfriend and said that Mike was hitting on her. And then he came up, and there was 5 of us in the group, and we were all working on manifesting reality. And he came up with her, and he said, which one? So Mike says, calm down, guy. No one's hitting on her, no one's doing anything. So after I pulled Mike to the side, and I said to Mike, I don't want you to even acknowledge him. And when I mean by going dark, I mean really going dark. I said your proper response should have been to continue talking with us and to ignore him. Now, what I'm saying is, and I bring this up as a very good example, because you have situations in life when you'll have a car come and hit you. Should you ignore a car? Of course not. You can't ignore the car. But I want you to use common sense in dealing with day-to-day life. And I want you to really ignore those things that don't align with your goal. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so part of the key to this is, and this is something that this is like really key, okay? In order for you, the idea is to create this world, right? It's your world. And I use that expression about it's your reality and everybody else is just a guess, which is true. Because everyone around you that you see is nothing more than a projection of your thoughts and beliefs. The people that you interact and talk with are not real. They are only avatars that you create for the purpose of having an experience. So I'll go into a little bit about that too, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about how that works. Now, the thing you want to keep in mind is that you're building your world. What is that game called? Sims? It's an online game where you build a world. the kids play. And this is what you're actually really doing. And you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together that conform to the reality that you want. And everything that doesn't conform to that reality, you must learn to ignore and get out of your sphere of awareness. Because if you allow it to come in and it doesn't conform with the reality you want, then it's not going to help you in manifesting your goal. Now, when I was doing research and finding why certain people were able to manifest things very quickly, and I found the key, and this was essential. And it was something that I was doing, wasn't realizing that I was doing. And it was a shock to me. And one of the things that I traced it back was to ancient African culture, which then became part of Western culture, Western occult practice. And this is the practice of possession. Now, I actually wrote about this in an article. And when we speak about possession, we're speaking about a spirit or a deity that you can possess, right? And this is also in the NLP. NLP teaches this as well. But more importantly, I'm going to branch off from using the term possession, because in this article I wrote, I equated the term possession with obsession. Now, possession is becoming possessed by a spirit of something. Everything has an energy. Everything has an energy. If you want fame, That's an energy, and that's governed by the goddess Het-Heru. So if you want fame, you would, in African tradition, you would have to possess the spirit of Het-Heru. But what that really is saying is that if you want fame, you have to become obsessed. Now, what is obsession? Obsession is becoming totally consumed by something. You follow me?
Yes.
So when I study people who were able to manifest things, it was those people who had become so obsessed that they had visions, they had dreams. They couldn't tell the reality of what they wanted from the reality of the real world. They became one. Now, I'm going to take it even further from possession to obsession to frequency. When you are obsessed by something, all you're really doing is changing your frequency to match the frequency of the goal. Remember when I said last week, you can't really create anything because all that there is all that there is. You cannot add or subtract from it. All you can do is change your frequency to align with the thing you want, which is already in existence, but you can't see it and interact with it until you come into alignment with it. So when you're obsessed with something, you're really vibrating to a certain higher frequency to where you can interact with that thing and bring it into this time-space continuum. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is the absolute key to manifesting your goal. If you forget anything else, don't forget this. Because this actually is probably the meat and potatoes of it, the program. Anyone that becomes obsessed with something, now the energy works, whether it's for good or bad. You can become obsessed with, I don't know, global domination, and the energy will support you in that. Because the energy is not there to differentiate between good and bad. It's there to be just utilized. It's neutral.
Yeah.
Now, someone asked me, which was a good question the other day. A good question the other day about why is the Illuminati here? Do you guys know why the Illuminati is here?
Why? Well, because a long time ago someone wanted to have world domination.
Okay.
And
What about you,
started.
Jet? What about you?
What about
I've been
you?
reading a lot of different things about how these AI. This is coming from that guy that I told you about. He's saying that the Illuminati are actually AI,
Yeah.
and this AI has been created like millions of years ago, and that's what's controlling the Illuminati right now.
Yeah, that's close. That's close. But my question specifically is like, why are they here? And I gave you the answer to that. And it's the same reason why you can say, well, why was Hitler here? So let me just change the screen for a second so I can take you guys through this because this is very important. It's funny, I've got all these people texting me while I'm talking to you guys. It's like everybody wants to text me now. It's just like, okay. This is very important to manifesting. This is called the tree of life, the Egyptian tree of life. And if you look at the fourth sphere here, it's called Ma'at, the goddess Ma'at, right? The goddess Ma'at says that we're all interconnected, that there's a form function relationship. So you have to think about who we are as being fish in a tank of water. We all may not be able to see the water, but the water is there and we can't survive without the water. If the water is polluted, who's going to die? All the fish, right? Even though some fish will say, well, I've been a good fish all my life, so nothing's going to happen to me. But if the water's polluted, you're going to die. It doesn't matter how good that fish has been. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Evil such as the Illuminati, evil such as Hitler, Mussolini, you can go back through history through all the evil men. The evil is here. It's because the evil is in us. There is no way the Illuminati could exist if we weren't vibrating at a certain frequency to actually align and interact with the Illuminati. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the masses of people, 99% of people on the planet, and I'm not speaking figuratively, I'm speaking literally, 99% of the people on the planet are kind of like psychotic, are kind of sick and ill, and we need professional help. And the reason for that is because um, we have been given definitions, ideas, and thoughts that are anti-life, that are diametrically opposed to who we are. So when you are having and the basis of all of this, I'll give you the basis. When I say are sick, it goes to Sebek, the eighth sphere on the tree of life. What is Sebek? Sebek is, in the Egyptian culture, he is the trickster. He is the person who comes to you and gives you false beliefs and ideas that makes you think it's truth. And Ma'at, which is the fourth sphere, Ma'at is truth. Truth says that in order for there to be truth, or to understand what truth is, there must be an interconnectedness. There must be something to measure the truth by. Sebek says truth is independent and doesn't rely on anything else in this world. And that's not true. That's why Sebek is the jackal, the trickster. Now, what is Sebek? Sebek is the left hemisphere of the brain. So what Sebek does is he teaches the world to think in segregation, to separate things, to mislabel them and misdefine them, and to see yourself as an individual and not connected to the universe. When I tell you that there is no universe out there, it's all inside of you. But you have an illusion that you think there's an outside world, but there is no outside world, and science has proven that. That all you're doing is projecting outward and having an experience with a hologram. That's all you're doing. But you believe the hologram is real because your neural connections are making these connections, and they're sparking electricity. So you think that when you touch something, it's real because the signals, the impulses that your brain is putting out makes you think it's real, but it's not. It makes you think, sorry, it's solid, but it's not. So Sebek has fooled the world into believing things such as Democrat, Republican. You understand what I'm saying? He's creating these labels and definitions to divide and cause conflict.
Yeah.
So you don't understand that the subconscious is connected to the conscious mind, that there is a metaphysical realm that you can astral project to. You don't understand it because Sebek says the only thing that really is real is the physical world that you can see, hear, feel, and taste. That's all that's real. Sebek cannot imagine metaphysics. He doesn't understand that. So the world has been taught to rely only in the physicality of things. So what you have is a world that is basically created a reality tunnel, a bubble. So, which is why they'll send probes to Mars. And if you think I'm lying, do your research. And they'll send you back, NASA will send you back they'll put out in the media fake photos of Mars. They'll tell you we landed on the moon and we did not land on the moon. Because what they're trying to do is create this reality so you can't see beyond anything else. Therefore, they can lie to you. They can make you believe that you have no power. And the reality is that nothing exists apart from the observer. You are the observer. You are consciousness. And you're observing things. But as you're observing it, you're creating it. Or I should say manifesting it. So you have to keep that in mind. This is why the Illuminati, or we can call them the global elite, you can call them whatever they want, they have to keep you in a certain train of thought so that they can exist. Because if people became consciousness, and which is who you are, is consciousness, and you started operating out of the fourth sphere of the Ma'at principle, they would disappear. Because your frequency would vibrate to such a higher level that you would move from this universe or this reality into a different reality where they don't exist anymore. And that's dangerous for them. They don't want that to happen. So they have to keep, if you look at the totality of the population of the planet at 100%, they have to keep at least 60%. That's all they need. That's the tipping point. And there's a book called The Tipping Point that goes into the 100 Monkeys principle. They have to keep 60% of the population believing in their ideology. If it drops below that 60%, they're doomed. They're gone. And it's the same way with you. If you were to get friends, right? Say you got 10 friends and you told those 10 friends every Thursday, which is Ma'at's day, we're going to meditate on an objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
That collective agreement will manifest what you want. But they have to keep us from understanding that principle. Just like the Bible says, if two or more agree, it shall be. The more people you get to come into an alignment and agree with you, the more powerful you become. So we talked about before how you need patience in manifesting things. You as an individual, you're like a battery, like what do you call it, a AA battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to get more friends and people to align with your belief system to help you manifest your $500,000, you become now the power of a car battery. You get more powerful. This is why the Illuminati is so powerful, because they have at least 90% of the population believe in their ideology. So every time, you have to understand that when two planes hit two buildings and the buildings collapse, right? Mm-hmm. And the third one collapses without a plane being hit, without a plane crashing into it, and people still don't understand the fact that that was planned, then that tells you that they bought into a certain frame in reality.
Yeah, exactly.
So when I tell you not to argue with people, or as I was telling Mike not to respond to this gentleman, what I'm saying is don't buy into his frame, don't buy into their frame, ignore them and create your reality. Now, your reality in the beginning is not going to be strong, but the more that you practice it, the stronger it'll become, and then you'll start to see little manifestations of what you want pop up here and there. Because it's going to be a dominant culture or dominant way of life for you, that you start to manifest what you want and you start to have an attitude that aligns with what you want. Remember I told you, I said that, one of the things you can do is use people without their knowledge to help you manifest something. And the way you do that is you're always having joy, you're always having excitement, your highest excitement for what you want when you're communicating with them. You're always being positive with them, even if they're not positive with you. And your energy, they'll because we know the law of state transference says that energy is transferable. So your energy is going to transfer to them, and they unknowingly will help you manifest your goal. Any questions? Now, one of the great things that you can do also, this is just a side note, is that you can actually work on manifesting more power if you want. Instead of working towards a goal per se of money, career, a mate, you can say, I want to get more power. And you can do that, Mm-hmm. But let's look at this triad here. Can you guys see this on the screen?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just a quick question. Well, this is the same structure as the Kabbalah tree. I guess it's the same, right?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, okay.
This is tracing it back to the ancient Kemetic origin. So the 9 spheres of Set. Set is a deity, Egyptian deity, also known as Isis. Set is the deity of trance state. We talked about state, right? In order for you, and this is the first prerequisite. In order for you to manifest something, you have to go into trance or state. Now, you have here is Het-Heru. She's the goddess of joy, the goddess of the entertainment industry, but more importantly, she's the goddess of visualizations. So you have to visualize what you want, and it has to be real to you. The 8th sphere is Sebek. Sebek is a belief system. Sebek says if your beliefs are in line with truth, he'll open the way for you. So you have to have the correct belief system, meaning you have to believe that you have the power, believe that it can work for you. Mm-hmm. These 3 are the lower triad of the tree of life, and this is how you can manifest your power and manifest your will. And then you go up, and we can talk about this some other time because it gets a little more complicated as you go up this tree. But just understand there's a Set, Het-Heru, and Sebek. These are the main 3 that will help you manifest your goal. Now, one of the things that's very, very important is that you have to catch yourself when you're communicating with yourself. You know, one of the things that we do is we differentiate from the person and the self. The self is who you truly are. The person is the physical being and the physical body itself. You know, the vehicle.
Yeah.
The person can like things and dislike things, but the self.
Personality.
What's that?
The personality, is that
Yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the self, the true self, who you are, is consciousness. So sometimes when we communicate, we say, my person doesn't like chocolate ice cream. My person prefers Earl Green tea. And the reason we're saying that is so we understand that the spirit is all powerful, the self is all powerful, and there's nothing that can limit the self. We also say that you can't oppose yourself because if everything is one, then nothing is evil and nothing can come against you because you're connected to everything that there is.
Yeah.
So this is why we make that stark difference between the person and the self. And it's important that you start to get in the habit of communicating that way so your self or your spirit knows that it has power.
Mm.
When you say things like, there are two terms that we use, right? There's one called a permission slip, and another one that I didn't coin that frame permission slip, but it's a good term. But I use the term suggestion. Everything is a suggestion. When you are watching TV, when you're watching a movie, everything is being suggested to you to create a certain reality. Did you realize that?
Yeah.
And your spirit is acting upon that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not aware of the fact that these are suggestions, you're going to manifest these things.
Mm.
But when you take the frame of mind and you start to understand, hey, it's all a suggestion, I don't have to accept it, then you become more empowered.
Yeah.
Just like people don't realize, like, for example, Star Wars is a big propaganda to create a certain reality within people.
Yeah.
It's not an entertainment movie. It's a movie that is put out there to get you in a reality tunnel. But, you know, there was a guy, his name is Tariq Nasheed. He's an interesting guy. And I listened to some of his broadcasts, but he said something that was very profound. And I applauded him for saying it. And what he was talking about was Star Wars and how full of propaganda it is and how kind of like really messed up it is. And then he told people to go see it. So people called into his show and they said, well, if it's full of propaganda, it's full of subliminal suggestions, why are you telling us to go see it? He says, because if you are aware of it and what they're trying to do, then you can discern it. You know, you can discern from what you want to accept and what you don't want to accept. And that's
And then I guess when you know the mechanics of it, you are aware of that, then you can actually use it to your advantage.
right. So the great thing about this is, right, what you focus on tends to expand and you'll see more of. So if I'm focusing on a certain job or a career, right,
Mm-hmm.
and I only focus on that thing to create a world, right, you're going to start to, through the process of synchronicity, and this is what they use, the occultists use this term, and the conspiracy theorists use this term, synchronicity, which was created by I believe it was coined by Carl Jung, the famous psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
You're going through the process of synchronicity, see more of what you want, and it will start to align in your life. So if I consistently think about pink elephants, no matter, I'm going to start going down the street and seeing in windows, in supermarkets, pink elephants, because you're going to start to manifest that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's important, going back to what we are saying, that you become obsessed with the goal and that your frequency changes to align with that. So what you focus on, you'll tend to see more of. So I was talking to Mike, right, when we were out working on creating reality, right? And I said to Mike, because Mike is into physics, right? And I said, Mike, what do you think happens if I wanted to focus on a career? Now I just do something out there, right? Say race car driving, right? And I said, and I read every book there was on race car driving. what would happen? And he says, you'll be very knowledgeable in race car driving. I said, no. I said, your mind would make the neural connections and start to create a reality, a world of race car driving for me. So what I'm saying is, when you're reading books and you become so obsessed in something, it starts to form. What really happens if you study the work of like Bashar? What will really happen is Bashar says this. I say you manifest, your vibration, your frequency changes so you align with the goal, right? Bashar says differently. It's really kind of the same thing. Bashar says you will move out of this earth into a different earth where you are now a millionaire. That's his theory on it. In other words, he's subscribing to the multiverse theory, saying all you're doing is shifting from one earth to a different earth or a different universe where you are famous, a famous actor, a famous dancer. So this is like the magic that we have and the power that we have, because I tell people all the time, I say, reading a book is not just about reading, it's about experiencing, or I call it re-experiencing something. You experiencing something, because that's more important. That's a right brain type of thing rather than a left brain thing where you're just reading words on a piece of paper. And the way you do that is to totally immerse yourself in the subject matter by reading everything possible in that subject matter until your software in your brain becomes rewired. And that's all that you see, and that's all that you're exposed to. Yeah. In other words, you're cutting yourself off from everything that doesn't align with what you want. And when you do that, you're going to see some fantastic things happen. You're going to see like miracles happen. There have been many directors who were pitching movie ideas to studios, right? And some of the things they said, that they knew that a certain studio, or they knew a film would get greenlit because they would start having dreams about the movie, the script. And I said, well, it's not that the dreams are the omen. It's that you're now becoming obsessed, or your frequency is changing to align with the goal. That's what's really happening. But they thought it was like an omen from the dream. I said, no, it's not. So that, coupled with the fact that you don't want to sabotage yourself by using incorrect language, and you're going to do it because you're living in a fish tank and the water is polluted. So you're going to have doubts, you're going to have fears, you're going to sabotage yourself. But what we have is what we call as course correct. You get off course, correct your course. And the best way to stay on course is to create a ritual for yourself. I don't care if the ritual is putting up pictures in your apartment or at your desk of your goal, but make sure it's smack dab in front of you, or it's whatever you're reading, or it's whatever you're watching. Then we'll go to something that's even more profound, which is
in terms of our physical life. On the second density, you have plant life, very different from us. And on the first density, you have mineral life. Okay?
Thank you. Let's talk about density, okay? So this is a chart which basically goes over the different aspects of physical reality, but more so importantly, the soul. So here, you see that we have the individual and we have the collective, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is, the collective is everyone on the planet. Yeah. A lot of us on the planet are in agreement with something that we are not even aware of that we're in agreement with. And that's what films like Star Wars tries to do, is try to get people in agreement with things. And we know through the 100 Monkeys principle that you don't have to get everybody on the planet in agreement with something. You just have to get 60%. And that's 60% because the collective mind or the collective consciousness will affect the remaining 40%. Yeah. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'll go over this one really quick. The higher mind is the agreement that you made before coming to Earth. You follow me?
Yes.
Now, the one thing that you cannot get away from is that agreement. So if you made the agreement that in this life you will be poor, there's no way to get around that, because your higher mind wants to experience that. Now, the best way to overcome, well, the best way to deal with that is, we spoke about this last week, is through an oracle reading, because the oracle would tell us that if your goal that you've set is doable or not. Because your higher mind, which is you, is not going to violate your own agreement. You know what I mean? You're certainly not going to let me, because some people actually pay someone in spiritual culture to do rituals for them, a priest to do rituals for them on their behalf, which is good. You can do that, right? But if you made the agreement that goes against that, there's no amount of ritual that the person can do that can get you out of that situation. You just have to deal with the situation you're in. Which is why you have people on the planet who are going through poverty, AIDS, starving. All of that is an agreement. All of that is an agreement that they made to come to this earth to experience that, because God consciousness wants to experience every aspect of being. Now, the idea is, when you're going through these things and these challenges, I want you to understand something that'll help you to deal with them. You have to really keep in mind and say this over and over to yourself. Don't take it serious. It's not real. It's not real. Because if you buy into the frame that everything around you is real, you're doomed. That's one of the greatest sins you can commit against yourself. Because the goal here is for you. I always equate this to you being like this secret agent, that you come here to gather intelligence, information on what it's like to be a dancer, what it's like to be an IT person, what it's like to be an actor, director. And that information that you're gathering is going to what we call as the oversoul. The oversoul is the soul that is collecting the information and relaying that information to God consciousness, so God consciousness can understand and say, so that's what it's like to be a starving actor. That's what it's like to be a millionaire. That's what God consciousness wants to understand. So the experience that you're going through is only an experience so that God can understand itself in its full infinite potential. Because God is infinite. God has no beginning, no end. And all of this is happening simultaneously within the space-time that you're existing in now. So there's an aspect of you right now that's living in another universe that could be a construction worker. Another aspect of you that is existing who's a politician. All of it is happening simultaneously, because Ma'at tells us that there is no past, there's no future, there's only the now moment. And Bashar equates the now moment to this, which is a brilliant analogy. He says that it's all strips on it's all frames on a film strip. That when it's viewed together, it gives the illusion of movement. But there's no movement. There's only moments of now. And that's what we are, and that's how we are existing. So now, if you know that there's nothing, the only thing that we know for sure in terms of what is reality or what is truth is that there's infinite possibilities. Everything is possible, but not everything is probable. So you have to take comfort in knowing that there's really is nothing that you can't accomplish. It's only what is the probability of it happening. We know that quantum physics tells us, and Mike was actually even throwing that little curve at me, saying, you know, if you drop the glass on the floor and it breaks, there is there is a probability of it coming back up, reassembling itself and coming back into your hand. I said, "You're kidding me." He says, "Yes." He says, "But the probability of it happening would mean that the Big Bang would have to happen 1,000,000 times, and this universe would have to be born 1,000,000 times more for one instance of that glass dropping and reforming itself to happen. But, however unlikely, it still is probable." Or possible. So what I'm just giving you is just food for thought for your belief system to entertain and understand that you're not dealing with something that's impossible for you to do, that there is endless possibilities out there. And all you're doing is you're pulling from those possibilities to create something for yourself that you want. The problem is that we've been given ideas that we have to rely on outside saviors, we have to rely on physical means to get things done. And when we buy into that frame, we create that tunnel, we create that reality tunnel, and that becomes real to us. If I say to you, you cannot, in no way possible, overcome that disease. Well, if you, which is nothing but a suggestion, if you accept that, then the spirit creates that limitation. The spirit moves you into a universe where it's physically impossible for you to overcome that disease. But if I say to you on the flip side of the coin that you have the power to heal yourself, then your spirit takes that in and it manifests the power within you to heal yourself. This is why how we communicate and what is being put out there in mass media is so vitally important. Mm-hmm. So what's preventing you from manifesting something? A belief system. A belief system based on a suggestion. I remember once I was studying with a priest, and I was telling him, I said, I feel tired. He said, you're not really tired. It's just a suggestion. He said, but you will be tired now. And I was like, yeah, that's right. It is a suggestion. That's all it is. Even though you think it's the physical body that's tired, it's still a suggestion. And what Bashar says a permission slip is you're giving yourself permission to now feel tired. And then we can go down the rabbit hole and talk about entitlement issues, because certain people don't feel entitled to have certain things in their life, even though they may want things in their life. They may say, well, I would like a house, I would like a new car, or I would like the perfect mate. And they probably would like that, but because of the way they were raised, they don't feel entitled to those things. So that's a belief system which will sabotage them. Yeah. And I've had that issue too. And it stems basically from your parents and how they've indoctrinated you into certain belief systems.
Yeah.
So then how do you overcome that?
Well,
change your belief?
No, we talked about that before, because if that's rooted in your childhood, then what we can do is go back and give you a different history. We can rewrite the program.
Oh, through hypnosis, right?
Right. So we go back and we start from the very beginning, and then we can, for example, this is just a really crude example of new parents who feed you proper belief system, and it works. It's very effective, because you'll start to forget, not to forget, but you'll start to see in your mind's eye different parents, and you'll start to hear the chatter and talk of those parents who are encouraging. They'll be like your personal cheerleaders. So your belief system will change because we changed your history. And when we change your history, if we do it on a very deep level, it changes your present. So there's multiple ways of dealing with things. Some people don't need that. Some people don't have entitlement issues. Some people are like, yeah, bring it on. I'm ready, Other people are coming from a place of low self-esteem because they've been beaten down when they've been raised by their parents. The parents have never given them positive encouragement. And I see this a lot of times because I give a lot of dating advice, and I see guys and girls. And this one woman, she just texted me while I'm counseling. You know, I actually had to take her. And this is just a side story, and she won't mind me sharing this. I actually had to take her to a very well-known witch. She studies Wicca, and so that this woman could hear it from someone else other than myself. Because I was talking myself to death, and she just did not get it. And she kept saying, you know, I'm not meeting any good men. All the men I'm meeting are married. And I said, because you're filtering out the men, you're creating a reality where you're only meeting men who are married. That's what you're doing. And she wouldn't believe me for the longest time. So I took her to someone who could be a third party to this and validate what I was saying. But consequently, you can tell that she had entitlement issues. She came from a place of low self-esteem to where she didn't feel that she could have someone who appreciated her for who she was.
Yeah.
And because she came from a different culture and background, that added to the complexity of it. But a lot of people have those issues. A lot of people walk around with those issues, and sometimes some things are buried in your spirit so deep. It takes a lot to get that out, to purge that.
Yeah.
Like one of the things I do, and I do this every night when I go to sleep. Before I go to sleep in that twilight state, I'm always envisioning the ideal person I want to be, the peripheral benefits of my goal. So I can take that into the spirit, because I understand that there are things that are buried so deeply, they could be vexing you and you don't even realize it. Yeah. That they could be placing limitations on you. And you know what? Let me tell you something. This society has yet to deal with that. Because through the collective unconsciousness, there's what we call the shadow self. We all know, like the people who are practicing witchcraft know about the shadow self. This is well known. But we haven't dealt with the issue of the collective mind shadow self. Because when the collective mind gets together, we all share that shadow self. So what's buried there?
Yeah.
You know what's buried there, the evil. that's corrupting the planet, and that's where that evil is coming from. Our shadow self. You get it? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That shadow self has created evil that's controlling the planet. And we haven't dealt with that. As a collective, we have not dealt with that issue. But let me tell you something. The great thing about this is that it has a built-in safety mechanism. Because when the evil gets to a certain point that so many people's spirit are harmed, then the collective unconsciousness calls out for a savior. So someone is born, whether it be a Neo or whoever, who will come and spread enlightenment to people. And I think that's great that God put that in place.
Yeah. I think it's called grace.
Yeah. And so it works the same way if you're like starting a business. If you want to be successful, start something where there is an innate need within people. Because through their need, the masses of people and their need, it will bring what you want to fruition, because people need it.
Yeah.
Now, you have to go to the Oracle to find out if you're the one to bring it into fruition or not. Just like the world's, one of the things that movies do is movies are the great inspirers of invention. So if you study something on predictive programming, where they talk about how movies can predict the technology of the future, which is not really true. They're not predicting anything. What movies do is they plant a suggestion within the spirit so that someone will come along and invent what's in that movie. Because the collective agreement agrees, the collective unconsciousness agrees, there is a need for this, so the spirit creates somebody like a Tesla or Edison to come and invent it. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like if there was really a need for a transporter to transport you from one location to another, the spirit would create somebody to invent that. But there's no need for that right now. But rest assured, if there was, this is why you'll see movies that you think are fantasy or sci-fi, but what Hollywood is really doing is Hollywood wants to bring something to fruition, so it's using the collective unconsciousness of the general public to bring it about. It could be a war, it could be a political leader, it could be an invention or a small conflict, or getting Hollywood more money. You know, that's why you have to. I'm going to just throw this out there. You have to think about some things. Like, is Facebook really the invention of one guy, Zuckerberg? Is it really his invention? And I have a theory about it, which it goes beyond the scope of this discussion. But I don't believe that Zuckerberg created Facebook. I believe there's a little more to it than that. But, just think about that, right? Just keep that in mind about how powerful you are and how you can create and manifest these things just from your spirit based on how you communicate with yourself, your belief system, your sense of entitlement. Do you feel entitled to it? You have to check that, and how passionately you want something. Is it all consuming? Does it possess you? Does it obsess you? If it does, then you're gonna get it, because the spirit will not. The spirit is not going to hold anything from you. The only thing the spirit will say is, "How complex of a request is this? Because it may take me a while to manifest it." If you say I must meet a guy 6 foot tall, wearing a blue shirt, red shoes, has yellow hair, that's a little complicated. The spirit will manifest it, but it's going to take some time. Unless you get like 10,000 people to meditate with you. You know what I'm saying? And this is why, and let me tell you something, right? I was talking to some actors, and I was really into like the film industry. I'm getting back into that this year, right? And I was telling them, because just between us on this call, most actors are full of it. They're totally full of it, right? Because I would coach actors, and I said, listen, if you really, really want stardom, I can get that for you. Here's what you need to do. Spend a year. You're going to do rituals every week. You're going to be buying these herbs. You're going to be meditating for at least 10 hours. But at the end of that year, you're going to achieve the success you're looking for. You know how many people did it? Not one. Because in the end, they didn't want it badly enough. It wasn't all consuming.
Could it be that they did not believe it?
That's part of it as well. But when I looked at their general lifestyle and what they were doing, it was always some way that they weren't committed to what they said they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that people in life have a way of going about things that make no sense. In other words, it's like, you want to be an actor, you want to be successful, but I don't want to take acting classes. You know what I mean? And I saw that a lot. So I said, so you're really not committed to it then.
Yeah.
So you'll see in their life those loose ends to say, yeah, you say you want it, but you really don't want it. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. When I wanted to study changing reality, I flew to San Diego, then to, where else did I go? I went to San Diego, then I went to Florida, then I went to Las Vegas, chasing after this one guru who knew how to do it, paying this money to the guy to teach me. And he did teach me. He taught me. And the things that I did to learn it, basically what it did was it destroyed the foundation of my reality to where I almost had a nervous breakdown because he was so hard on me. But I never gave up the program. I never stopped. I remember one night he was in San Diego, I was in a hotel room, and I felt that he had berated me so badly that I was just going to quit and write a complaint letter. But I stuck it out, and I became a better person because of it.
Mm.
And you've talked to Mike, and Mike is one of the most dedicated people I've ever seen. Mike doesn't just listen to me. Mike looks at what I'm doing and mimics it, because that's how thirsty he is. He wants this. You know what I mean? But he's coming from a perspective of studying physics, so he understands that this is real. Some people don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we initially started out as a large group. And I was talking to Mike the other day. I said, man, we started out as a large group, and now we're dwindling. I guess, it's only the strong survive. Because, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, very often this is to be expected.
Oh, yeah, because what we're talking about here is not easy, and there are multiple levels to it. I mean, I'm giving you guys just this aspect of it, but then there's a whole other aspect, and there's a teacher that I learned from more about dealing with magical herbs. You can get into that will help you in manipulating reality. If you want to go in that direction, there's a lot of powerful herbs, but that's herbology. It's a very intense field. And then you guys even haven't started with the oracles yet. You need to master the oracles, because the oracles will give you so much more.
Mm.
It'll give you so much more insight as to what your weakness is. Is your weakness visualization? Is your weakness in your belief system? Is your weakness trance state? What is your weakness? Why isn't it manifesting? The oracle will tell you why. It may tell you you're going to deal with stuff that your parents threw into your psyche. And that's the 18th hexagram of the I-Ching. It's called correcting the mistakes of the father. So when you get that, you know that you've got some serious work to do. So there's a lot of stuff to this. It depends on how deep you want to go and how deep you want to understand this. But it's a great journey. It's really learning. It's self-discovery. And as you're discovering yourself, you're learning that nothing is real, that it's all subject to change. Any questions? Okay, great. So the next thing is, I just want to, you guys type in the 9 levels of consciousness. This is a really good video. One of the better videos I've seen on this subject matter. So you guys should watch that. It's a short video too. It's not really long. But also, what I want you to do is to get your reading done for 2016. Because that's going to map out how your year is going to be and what you can expect. And that's very important, because 2015 had a lot of surprises, but because I did the reading, my readings I've done are per month, so I know what to expect every month. Those 12 readings. So you can either get that done, the 12 months, or you can just do the overview of 2016. But it's important that you understand what's installed for you. And one of the things my friend does, her name is Kat, and like I said, she's a witch. And because if I have a situation that I have trouble with, I'll come to her to make me a special concoction to help me with. And I love what she says. She says, the one thing about you, Kasak, is that if you know something's coming, you don't wait. You address it right away. And that's what I'm saying to you out there, is that get your reading done. What the reading reveals to you, take action to address it right now, because you don't want to go into a new year and have something like financial hardship, relationship issues. You don't want that stuff to come up and creep and get you. It's tough, It's really, really tough. And there were certain months that, because I'm the type of person where I love this. I have a Ma'at personality, and if you don't know what that means, Ma'at is very expansive, and Ma'at is wealth. So I like to spend, and there were some. Last year was a year that I spent too much, and I saw that in the readings for certain months. And so you just got to be very, very careful. And the readings are perfect for basically pinpointing those things and saying, you know what, in July, your finances are not going to be good. In September, you have a real bad relationship issue. And when you see those things coming, you can prepare for it. You can do your meditation, your ritual to make sure that you go through it without any real issues or it affecting you. Otherwise, it's going to hit you hard and you'll be like, oh, whoa, this is, you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now about the readings, you do the readings or
Yeah.
does it go?
So I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody in the group, and you'll be able to sign up for the readings, and you'll see the different types of readings that can be done for 2016.
Okay.
You know, so
Iran,
yeah.
in about using other people to manifest your reality, how do you do that? I know you said be positive, be excited, but say if your goal is to manifest money or get a new car, how do you do that with those people?
Yeah, good good question. So what you're going to do is when you're interacting with those individuals, right? This is when we go to the Oracle. This is what happens, right? We'll go to the Oracle and say, Oracle, what energy vibration do you need to manifest that car or that money, right? And the Oracle will tell you the frequency that you need to move to. The frequency will translate into a mantra. So you'll be reciting a mantra in your head, right? So when you're dealing with people, right, what you're going to do is you have to be very excited, very motivated, and very passionate, right? And you have to keep the excitement going, right? So when you're interacting with them, in your head, you're visualizing your goal when you're interacting with them. Because consciousness is one. We all share the same consciousness. So when you're dealing with somebody in those short bursts of interactions, you're focusing on your goal, but you're still communicating with them. And because remember I said the law of state transference is when you're in that state, that ideal state, it transfers over to them, and they unknowingly will help you manifest it. Because what you'll find would happen is their energy may be stuck where it's at. Maybe they're not the most positive that day, or maybe a little bit upset that day, or angry that day, or maybe they just have a negative disposition. Doesn't matter. The way you come from is, and Bashar calls this, come from a frame of excitement, real excitement. You know, he calls it the highest excitement. So it's the same thing. You're just motivated about your goal. You're interacting with them, and you're trying to motivate them as well. Keep the idea of you want them motivated. You don't have to necessarily motivate them, but you have to be motivated because that energy would transfer to them. But if you go to them and your interaction is blasé and it's just not like we commonly do in everyday life, then it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. As long as your interaction is positive, that your goal is in your mind. So one of the things that I teach is one of the things that we talk about. This happened a little while ago when we were doing this whole dating advice thing, and that you would talk with the person you were interested in. You would visualize yourself together with that person, and their consciousness would meet with your consciousness, and then it would hopefully form a union. Same thing here on the principle of speaking with somebody, being excited about your goal, them seeing the excitement within you. They don't have to understand what you're trying to do. They don't. You know what I mean? Now, let's take this to a deeper level, right? So you want to get really deep with this? So what we're going to start doing, and I'm very good at doing this, and I told you guys about this before, like when they would get me into interviews for like consulting jobs and all this, I would always get the job. So what you would do is you would put them into a trance state, and then you would feed them these subliminal suggestions. Wouldn't it be nice if you can find that person that can help you get to where you want to go and feel really excited about it? Can you imagine that right now? Now, I just told you to imagine it, but I bypassed the critical thinking left brain by saying, can you? If I said, imagine it now, you would have put up resistance. But because I use the language, can you imagine that? It allows you to imagine it. And we're talking, and these are layers, and you're using symbolism, and it's a whole what we call a technology behind doing this, because you're actually implanting, and this is a way we heal people as well. When people have traumatic experiences, we heal them by telling them stories. And they don't understand that we're really implanting ideas and thoughts in their head to get better, to feel better. They just think it's an interesting story.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you just an abbreviated way of doing it by keeping your excitement high, visualizing your goal. But as you move and progress, then you'll start to and learn more. You will use the correct language, and you will learn how to put a person into trance by talking with them. And some of the things that you can do to put them in trance is to you could basically because you want to go deeper and deeper and deeper and talk more and more so that their state becomes deeper and they understand more and they love to hear the sound of your voices and go deeper and deeper. And it's so great when you communicate this way because people love it and you'll start to love it as you hear my voice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So take that in and think about that, you know.
Mm.
And you can't use that on your mate because after a while, your mate will start to pick up on what you're doing, and they'll be like, "Stop doing that."
Mm-hmm.
It's like I understand your perspective, and it's great that we can have these conversations. And as you listen and as we discuss, you'll begin to see more of my perspective and go deeper and deeper into understanding more and more.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. I'm trying to, I just want to give you guys just a quick way of going about it because we don't have to get too deep into neuro-linguistic programming and into all of these techniques and all that. But the basics are you get very, very excited about what you want, you become obsessed with it, and you create the reality that you want on the peripheral, but you're not focusing again on the goal itself. You're focusing on the benefits of the goal. Do you remember what we talked about the correspondences?
Yeah, the
So if you are rich, right? What's a correspondence with being rich? Freedom, right?
yeah, total
What,
freedom,
what is
traveling around the
right? What is
world.
it like to feel freedom?
Mm, I make my own schedule. I'm not bound by obligations to work for somebody in order to make money to survive, for example.
Exactly. That's right. And you keep that thought in mind, and then you come up with other correspondences, right? Well,
Yeah,
I have an attitude of abundance. So I see things. I know I can get those things. I know
yeah,
I can get those things. You know?
yeah, there's no limitation.
I
Yeah.
go shopping. I go window shopping. I look at things and I say, I like those things. Those are very expensive things. I know I can get those things.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're not focusing on the money, but we're just focusing on the benefits of what the money can bring us. And therefore, we're not outcome dependent because remember what we said, outcome dependent can kill you. It can sabotage the manifesting of the goal. So keep that in mind. And if you have any questions, let me know. Look out for the email for the reading. Get your reading done, and then we can talk next Monday at 9 p.m.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Rob, if you can send out the replay of this, that'd be great also.
Okay. Sure. I'll do that. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks.